Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, PaPa Pacelli,
Hello, hello, and salute.
where you can catch him every Friday night, and I'm usually on with him for a last call.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of responses on the last one. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Al said, "My God, you were like off the hook." I'm like, well, sometimes you got to let loose and let off some steam, you know.
Yeah,
And yeah, we are. I know we're slightly late tonight because I kept Boomer talking in the green room. A conversation that we should probably have on a stream some night. I think you
Terminator.
guys would
That
enjoy it.
might
Yeah.
be an idea. If you were, how would we have fixed the Terminator movies after two? Right?
Actually, that wouldn't even have to be as big a project as my DC thing. It could be one stream. Maybe I'll do that this Friday. If you know what, those of you in the chat, if you're interested in talking about the Terminator series of films
Yeah, any
and
Terminator
and
fans
whatnot,
out
we'll
there?
talk
Yeah,
about that on Friday if you want. If you want. But
yeah, because
that's
we
not
can
what
get.
we're talking about. Well, not exactly what we're going to be
Well, we
talking
are going to
about
do a good
tonight.
old days. I was thinking '80s action stars, but I was really just thinking about what it was, what it meant to be a movie star in the '80s and
God,
even the
yeah, right.
'90s versus what it is now, which is a if there is even such a thing. But let's say hi to the chat. I get a hi,
Absolutely.
sweetie, from Netter. Thank you very much.
Yep. And Netter calls me the love of her life because she's the love of mine. I think it's just a reciprocal relationship. Maybe a little codependent.
Maybe. Good evening,
Hey,
Aged Boomer
Auditor Dread.
and Troy Pacelli. What do you mean by good evening? I don't think I like your tone. You're off. You're blocked.
Good
I'm sorry.
evening.
No, that's a joke. Everyone gets offended by anything these days. It's like,
I know,
what do
right?
you mean by that? It's like, have a wonderful show, you geezers. I know description means artificial intelligence, but it looks like you're saying I will kill you all. Haha. Yeah, in the description I just said, I didn't feel like getting into it. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about death of the movie star and how AI will kill us all.
Yeah.
That was basically.
It'll make sense. You know what? And those kinds of headlines, that's good. It gets you thinking about what we're going to be talking about. You probably already know, especially if you're following the news, but we'll get into it.
Plenty of Disney-related topics tonight. I'm sure I used the name Disney too early in the stream, so now we're going to get into trouble.
Right.
Hey, you geezers, get your geek on. Well, we'll
That's
try.
the idea. That
It's
is
getting
what we
hard
do
these
every
days, isn't
Sunday.
it? Huh?
It's very hard to get your geek on without getting a little political. You know, it's just how it is.
Zootopia, welcome. And like I said, Birdman and I, we did a Bond movie this week. We will have to have you on for the next one. I know you're a big Bond fan. We're not doing Casino Royale this week, though. It'll be next week because Raiders of the Lost Ark is having a theatrical re-release for one night only.
There you
Ever
go.
hear of that movie?
A time or two.
Might as well
Wasn't that the
enjoy
one
it.
where everyone in the movie was James Bond?
No, I was talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
Yes.
there's a Lost
No,
Ark.
don't bring up that other Casino Royale, the one from the 70s. It's my pick for worst movie of all time. Did you know that?
You
That's
realize
how
that
bad
was the
that
first
is.
James Bond movie.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
It came after Thunderball.
Did it really? I
Yes.
don't think
Oh,
so.
I know what you're thinking of. This is why you're confused. There was a TV special that was an hour long that was based off Casino Royale that preceded the Connery movies. The Casino
That's
Royale
it.
movie, the spoof movie, came out after that. But
That's
why.
it. You're
That's
right.
the
You're
same.
right.
You're right
You're
by
right.
the title, just not the version. There have been 3 different versions of Casino Royale. I've seen the made for TV. It's one of those teleplays,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
Bond was American.
You know,
Or
I
was
don't. I miss those teleplays. I really miss those. Those were good TV.
At any rate, I spent a lot of the weekend actually trying to secure MP3s of all the Bond novels. I won't tell you how I did it. What? Okay.
Oh, Netter actually went to the trouble of getting me all the pulp.
At the rate things are going, and we'll discuss this a little later, you may be having to do it with Lord of the Rings. Own a physical copy of Lord of the Rings. I'm
Oh,
talking
I
about the
already
book.
do.
Anyway, fine evening then. Aged. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Fine, bad evening then.
Yeah, right.
I saw a video discuss how.
I see what you did there, Auditor Dread. I'm with you.
how an AI sounds like a fictional character recently. AI is just weird. Or machine learning, we should say, because I don't know how.
If I can call you Betty, then Betty, when you call me, you can call me AI. Yeah, Bond was American in the TV. Jimmy Bond, played by Barry Nelson. Yeah. Are you getting a fax?
No, the phone is ringing. Welcome to my world right now.
You actually have a landline phone? Oh my gosh.
Yes. Well, not me, but the owner of the house does. Okay.
I love Deep Hensex picking up on Terminator films and the Kraken. Yeah, baby.
Yes. Like I said, these are not going to be necessarily the most professional sounding streams, at least until I get my walls back.
Oh, you're sitting in like an open space?
Basically, the whole house is an open space right now. I try to put my distance between myself and the TV at least. So you're not hearing the NCIS theme in the background because I'm worried I'll get demonetized.
Well, you're not monetized anyway, so it's not going to hurt.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. But get a strike or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have an article we're going to talk about tonight about movie star and the death of the movie star. And I was thinking back to the 80s and what a big deal it was to be a movie star back in the 80s. Remember?
Yeah, and unfortunately, part of business is prognostication, right? You look at statistics, you look at history and whatnot, you try to predict trends and so forth. Same thing with politics, right? You try to figure out how people are going to vote, for the purpose of how your candidate runs and markets himself and so forth. Unfortunately, the big problem is that these prognosticators use old assumptions and old paradigms, and they don't keep up with what's going right now. And it's the people that are paying attention to those things. I mean, what was the one telemarketing, right? For are you going to vote for this person or that person, right? And they very quickly realized that their polls were being very badly skewed because so many people didn't have landline phones anymore. It was all mobile phones, and people would look and go, I don't know that number, and not answer. So you were only getting a very small portion of the population, which tended to skew, older, that weren't keeping up with the technology, that maybe were of a particular political bent because of their age and where they were at, and so forth, financially and whatnot. I think we're looking at the same thing when we look at talking about movies and whether or not the star power behind them, the names, are a draw. It used to be, well, let's look at some random film, Superman, right? They cast Christopher Reeve, a complete unknown. Okay, but we got to get a big name in there or no one's going to show up. We'll get Marlon Brando and we'll get Gene Hackman and we'll give them both billing above the star.
Yeah.
Right? And honestly, it worked. There were a lot of people that went to see it just because Marlon Brando was in it.
Man, Marlon Brando's in it. And Gene Hackman, I believe, was he was a name.
Yeah.
And so was Ned Beatty. He was also a name, too.
Yeah, Ned Beatty, right. Yeah, exactly.
And Network, he was in Network.
Now, I will say this. While I do think that Marlon Brando was not a bad casting for what they were thinking, the grandiosity of the Jor-El character, right? An almost godlike character, right?
Right.
Casting Ned Beatty as the bumbling sidekick villain, and Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, but a somewhat comical one. Not roles you would expect for those two at that time. They were playing a little against type for themselves.
Right.
Which was interesting.
Right, because they were usually big dramatic actors, correct? That was the...
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, heavies. So to see them as villains was not a big stretch. But that kind of villain, I think a lot of the older audience went in and were like, was not expecting that from these guys. The kids, they were there for Superman. They didn't give a crap. They had no idea who that puffy-faced, white-haired guy was.
Yeah. But yeah, when you're a kid, you're going there for Superman. But when you get older, you start to recognize actors.
Right.
In fact, that starts when you're a kid. And I remember, in the '80s, it was Sly Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember?
Yep. As far as action heroes, absolutely. Both of them took a while before they got into comedy and drama. Well, I take that back. Let's back up. We got to separate them because they're cut from two very different cloths. Sylvester Stallone started out as a dramatic actor. He was, if people forget, Rocky was a drama. That wasn't an action film. That was not what Rocky as a franchise became. It was an underdog story. It was, kind of like a Raging Bull type of movie, kind of like, I don't know.
No, I mean, it was
on the waterfront, something like that.
Yeah.
It was definitely a dramatic role.
But then they became more like blockbusters as time went by, right?
Yeah. Then the whole paradigm changed. Then they became kind of like Rocky became a pseudo superhero in a way, right? The formula for the Rocky films became very much like the formula for a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think that the people making it thought of it that way. They still saw it as the same kind of drama that it started out as. But it became way more commercialized as it went.
But think about, with the exception of Superman, you didn't really have the superhero movie back then in the '80s. It was more about the action movie. It later became all about, right?
True. Exactly right.
And you were going to see your action star.
And think about your favorite films, the best films, from when you were growing up. We mentioned Rocky. We mentioned Superman. You can mention Star Wars. Any of those kinds of films. You can't look at something before them and say, oh, this is just like that. I just drew a couple of examples of films that you could compare Rocky to, but it was in a class by itself. It might have been inspired by those films, but it was something completely different. Star Wars? What could you compare Star Wars to? Yes, it was inspired by, and Lucas has said he was specifically inspired by, like Flash Gordon, the serials, the serialized films. Mm-hmm. But it's not the same kind of movie at all. It was something very unique. You can see elements of Western in it. You can see elements of a war film in it. But it was something completely different. And that's where the best films come from. Where do you get such and such film fatigue? When you're just rehashing the same shit over and over and over again. And there's nothing new there.
Which brings us to modern times.
Exactly. And it's gotten to the point where the real stars, the Hollywood royalty, as you might call them, are just cookie cutter today. Nobody rushes to the film because, okay, I shouldn't say nobody. Most people no longer rush to films because so and so is in it.
Anthony Mackie brought up a point during a conference, and he was saying, people aren't coming to see me; they're coming to see the Falcon. In those Marvel movies, so they're coming to see Captain America, rather than Chris Evans. He was making that argument about how things change. This was like 5 or 6 years ago when he was saying this.
Yeah, David makes a great point. Come on, Troy. Many of us were blindsided by Valerie Prime. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, I don't know if I
didn't know who she was, but boy, I enjoyed seeing her.
Yeah, she was sorely missed from Superman 4, along with decent special effects. And
oh gosh, yeah, right.
Don't bring that up. You want to hear me rant about it? Check out Birdman's channel. Deleted Scenes was on with us that night too. But
I will eventually be doing a watch party of the fan edit of Superman Redeemed, which is an amalgamation of Superman 3 and 4. You will enjoy it. You will believe you could enjoy Superman 3 and 4.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess this will bring us to our first article tonight. I don't know. I still can't believe they're still trying to push Jennifer Aniston on us these days. Are they? I'm trying to think the last thing I saw with her in it.
I have no idea. Unfortunately, she's one of those ones that started to get pretty big after Friends and petered out pretty fast.
I'm trying to think. The Friends actors, I think, they had limited success. I think David Schwimmer, for a little while, they said the Smart Movie was trying to be in like indie dramas as opposed to doing comedies, right?
Yeah.
Matt LeBlanc. I'm trying to think what I saw. I think he eventually got his own show, right? Later on.
He did for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think it really took off. He was also in that Lost in Space movie, which...
I remember the Lost in Space movie.
Yeah.
You wanted to like it, didn't you? I
did. I did.
It wasn't the casting. I thought the casting was spot on.
No, I thought his casting was actually spot on, to be honest with
everybody, even the villain who played the villain again. It was Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dracula, but okay.
Sid Vicious, anyway.
Sid Vicious, yes. We know all the roles he played. That's actually a bad sign for this exact topic we're talking about.
Gary Oldman.
The Fifth Element. Yeah,
Gary
exactly.
Oldman. There we go. Yes, he was in the Fifth Element. Yes.
Everyone.
That's a good movie, Fifth Element. You know, we're supposed to get a sequel, but some reason it just didn't come together.
What were they going to call it? The Sixth Element?
I don't know. Anyway,
that actually would have been good, right?
Yes. We used to treat movie stars like gods. Hollywood grapples with loss of young star power. Yeah. I always thought we used to treat movie stars like royalty.
Yeah. That was the thing. Well, you know, I've kind of heard from some of the celebrities I've interacted with. I mean, you see it sometimes, the way people treat stars, but some of the stories they've told me, it gets creepy. Oh, and yeah, sure. there are people that kind of deify people that they worship. I mean, they really do, you know. And it does get creepy. So I don't think it's even out of line to say treat them like gods, much to sometimes their own chagrin.
Didn't they do a? I mean, it wasn't about a Hollywood star, but it was about a sports star. I think it had De Niro in it, and Wesley Snipes was a baseball player. Was it called The Fan?
Oh yeah, I never saw it, but I know
it was obsessive because it was like an obsessive fan. I don't know. Okay, we used to treat movie stars like gods. Hollywood grapples with loss of young star power. The hottest package at this year's Cannes Film Festival stars a 76-year-old action star and is a reboot of a movie that first dazzled moviegoers in 1993. That's a time, in case you forgot, before TikTok or smartphone, Facebook or Amazon, or any number of technological changes that have reshaped our world and the movie business along with them. And yet Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone bravely summiting the mountain again is seen as one of the most commercial scripts out there for buyers hoping to make an adventure film that can traverse borders and bring crowds, with a nod to the younger audiences who will be needed to turn up if the movie is going to replicate the original's blockbuster status. The producers tease that casting is currently underway for a presumably younger actor to share the screen with Sly, but who will that be? Over the last 10 years, we've done a really shitty job of creating a new generation of movie stars, groused one sales agent. And a look at some of the projects on offer or premiering at Cannes seems to bolster that argument. There's Breakout, an action thriller featuring 75-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger that will be directed by Expendables 4 filmmaker Scott Wow. Lords of War with 59-year-old Nicolas Cage returning to a role as an amoral arms dealer that he first played nearly 2 decades ago. I'm curious about that one. That was an interesting movie. That's Amore, a rom-com with 69-year-old John Travolta. Yeah. And The Rivals of Amzia King, a crime story featuring 53-year-old Matthew McConaughey. In most cases, these actors have been famous globally, so since the 1970s or 80s, McConaughey, a relative newbie, had to wait until 1996 as a time to kill to make his mark. On Thursday night, the increasingly geriatric nature of the star system was on full display at Cannes Film Festival as an 80-year-old Harrison Ford walked the red carpet for the premiere of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, for which he donned the fedora he first wore in 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, and is still preserved enough to unabashedly doff his top. I've been blessed with this body, he said sheepishly when asked about his shirtless scene at a press conference. Ford does get an assist from some of those technological breakthroughs, appearing 35 years younger in key scenes thanks to the magic of de-aging CGI. So why hasn't there been a flowering of new A-listers to rival the Fords, Schwarzeneggers, and Stallones of yesteryear? Protagonist Pictures COO George Hamilton points to the collapse of the DVD business in 2008 as the moment when Hollywood stopped being able to reliably make movie stars. Nearly all the actors and actresses who are bankable now had a very successful films when DVD and video was still a huge force, said Hamilton, who... Excuse me, lost my spot. It's Hamilton, who is selling several films at the festival, including Polly Finlay's debut feature, Midwinter Break, starring Leslie Manville and Ciaran Hinds. You could see that as a dividing line shifts in terms of older or newer generation. With the newer generation, there's more divisions between success because you could have the most watched show or film on a streamer, but there might be a whole swath of society who might not subscribe, and they're not part of that.
You know, stop right there. I do want to make a point about that.
Yeah.
Although that's not the key that this article is about, it is something that we have talked about a lot. Yep. And now I'm starting to see more and more outlets hitting on this.
Quentin Tarantino was kind of talking about that
yes.
the other week. Yeah.
How can it be that you... Well, and I said it in terms of our favorite series and the canon behind them, right? When I said, how can you consider something canon when it's not easily accessible to all of the fans, right? You know, you could tell me all you want about, what happened on Discovery and how that affects the canon of Star Trek, and I'm going to say, no, it didn't. I didn't see it. It never happened. And most of the people I know didn't see it,
Yeah, well,
and I couldn't see it because I don't subscribe to your Paramount, CBS, plus, minus, whatever it is.
Now it's mixed with Showtime.
Whatever, yeah.
Or at least they say it's going to be.
And it's by the same token, if you had a movie, right? You had a big movie star, okay? That you'd see them at the film. The film would be open to general theaters, right? So anyone could go see it for the 3, 6, 9 months. Back in the 70s, a movie could run almost the better part of a year if it was really doing well, Mm-hmm. That's how Star Wars started, in May and was still in the theaters come summer,
Yeah.
And then, you'd see them on TV. And then the film would end up on commercial television. You'd see it there, and when VHS came out, people would buy the VHS, and then you'd see that same guy do a guest appearance on this and that and the other on TV. Anyone could see them; they were viewable by everybody. Now, if you are on a streaming service behind a paywall and you're under contract to them, so you're not going to be appearing on any of the other streaming services or in any other movies from any other company, only the people that subscribe to that streaming service are going to see you. Doesn't make you very marketable.
It's not like the old days of the 90s when you'd turn on Fox and watch the X-Files and everybody else could watch the X-Files because it was on Fox. And then later on you would have the premium shows on cable channels, but you can still buy them on DVD at some point if you didn't want to buy, the subscription. We're living in a bit of a different world right now. Like I think I did mention to you, those Star Trek shows at least eventually do come to DVD, but unfortunately with Netflix, I don't know if they've stopped releasing the stuff on DVD or if it's just very slow.
Netflix, as far as I can tell, is still releasing everything they have direct control over. Okay. The only reason they never released, or maybe they have since, I don't know, but for the longest time they hadn't released any of those Marvel series that they were doing. They didn't have the lock, stock, and barrel rights to do so.
Interesting.
That's
Disney
why.
has not released any of their shows yet.
And Disney has not released any of them. And that brings us to the other thing. Okay, if you're under contract for Disney and you are contracted to do, say, Willow, and you do that whole series, and you're hoping that's going to bolster your career, What happens when that show gets pulled and they never show it again, and it's never released on DVD, and nobody cared enough to pirate it?
By the way, I didn't have time to enter this into the notes for this stream, but I read an article about that. It's a huge tax write-off, all those series.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about that a little bit on Friday. A lot of the, the channels that I follow, Midnight's Edge, WDW Pro, Valiant Renegade, have been talking about exactly that. But, it's not just from them and their sources anymore in speculation. It's been talked about in the trades and Forbes and stuff like that. It's out there. They know this is a tax write-off.
Yeah.
But here's the other interesting thing that I was thinking about the other day. It's a tax write-off, right? A lot of people are talking about how they're trying to scrape together the money to buy out Hulu, right? They almost have to. And this is part of it. This doesn't make them any more money. I made the joke last week because I heard someone else say it. It's like looking for change in the seat cushions so you can buy a pizza. The pizza being Hulu, and the seat cushions, actually looking for change in the seat cushions is not a good analogy. It's taking a tax deduction so you don't owe as much on your taxes, so that hopefully after your taxes you still have some money left over to buy a pizza. This doesn't generate them any money. It just means less tax liability. They are in a bad situation over there at Disney.
Can you imagine the amount of money they could have made off by releasing Mandalorian Season 1 and 2 when the show was at its peak?
Yeah. And that's it. This is part of why both Star Wars and Marvel are dying, right? Because they went from everything you have to go to the theater to see it, so everyone saw it, and then it gets released on, physical media, so everyone could buy it, to now only the people that subscribe to Disney Plus are watching the Marvel series that they do and the Star Wars shows that they do.
And they're tied into the movies as well.
Exactly, and you go to see the Marvel film and you have no friggin' clue what's going on because you didn't do all the homework. And you're like, well, fuck you, I'm done. I'm not coming back for the next one anymore. That was the whole idea behind the shared universe. You had this momentum, right? We talked about it way back when. You didn't like that Hulk movie? That's okay because, Thor's happening. Oh, you didn't like the Thor movie? That's okay, Avengers. You know
what's interesting? I look back to even VHS buying and DVD buying. We would get DVDs for Christmas as Christmas presents, and the idea was you would watch a movie on Christmas.
Yeah,
you'd watch like the summer blockbuster on Christmas Day that evening, or watch it some other time during the week. Right? It would be a big thing, and now I guess that's dropped off because everything goes to streaming. So it's not like you're opening up your new present; you get to enjoy it. I mean, I guess you can still do that because they still sell DVDs, but I guess people are just so used to streaming now.
Yeah,
they just hop right to that.
And then bringing that, back to this, you also have, we have all these aging stars, right? That they're hauling out of mothballs. They're doing it with Michael Keaton for Batman. They're doing it with Indiana Jones and so forth. Luke Skywalker. Guess what? Harrison Ford got the Luke Skywalker treatment. Despite what a certain cantina proprietor, would have us believe, yep, it happened to him too.
Birdman was telling me some spoilers he heard about.
He took the payday, and he looks like an old doddering fool. And, they're doing that to their... So not only are they not making new stars, they are driving their stars into the ground. They're saying, here's money, keep dancing for us, dancing monkey. And people are now not enjoying them, they're laughing at them, or they're cringing on their behalf. Now, and some of the analysts that I've heard talking about this Dial of Destiny are saying, it wouldn't have been so bad if instead of trying to have Indiana Jones do all the action stuff that he's always done, he goes, you know what? No, I'm done with that. I'll give advice to somebody. And then when they come and tell me this, that, and the other, he already knows because he saw it coming because he's that smart. That's how you treat a star like that, right? We just watched on Big Al's channel, we watched Support Your Local Sheriff. And you got a sheriff who's, yes, he's very talented, he's quick on the draw and whatnot, but he's smart and he outthinks everybody. You know, that's what you do with your older star. He's no longer the action star. All the action is cerebral now. I get my kicks above the waistline, sunshine.
Anyway, I'll wrap up the article. Hold
Yep.
on. And of course, they go on to talk about Twilight. That's sort of when the DVD stuff started going its death spiral.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised at because you would figure all the teeny popper girls wanted to go out and buy their Twilight DVDs. But let me see. The most promising members of the up-and-coming A-list often need to check multiple boxes like a Sydney Sweeney 25 who boasts not only one but two talked-about series, The White Lotus and Euphoria, as well as superhero cred, being her starring in Madam Web, a spin-off of Sony's Spider-Man franchise. I don't care. Meanwhile, the sales agent thinks some of the shrinking movie star has to do with the long-term contracts that rising stars like Tom Holland, Chris Hemsworth, and their ilk have signed to appear in Marvel movies. Others, such as Ryan Gosling, have been inconsistent at the global box office, often box office despite commanding passionate followings. While Timothée Chalamet, 27, scored with Dune, but remains something of an untried commodity. Michael B. Jordan, 36, has two franchises under his belt with Black Panther and Creed, but it remains to be seen whether he can carry a film without well-known intellectual property. Likewise, Jennifer Lawrence, 32, will face a huge test with regards to her bankability with the upcoming R-rated comedy No Hard Feelings.
You know, everything they said about Chalamet and with the Creed actor and so forth, that's always been true, right? You get one big role, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That doesn't automatically translate. That has never been the case. It takes role after role after role, and they got to be good ones, because you could also derail your career with a bad role at any time. We've seen it many, many times. But they skirt something with Jennifer Lawrence there, right? Mm-hmm. You could also derail your career by saying something stupid, right? She is never going to outlive that meme of, wasn't she the first actress ever? She was the first actress to do an action film. She was the first male action star. She was the first Asian action star. She was the first black action star. You know, I mean, that's never going to get old because she stepped right in it. You know.
Well, we'll see how her movie does this summer. The comedy she's doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the article, though. We used to treat our movie stars like gods, the agent said, but the marketing of these streaming movies is so limited that it doesn't really create stars. Actors aren't burned into the minds like they once were, and they don't have this larger-than-life image any longer. It's interesting. I'm thinking Chris Pratt may, because he keeps starring in hits. Mm-hmm. Might be the closest we have to.
He is the outlier, right?
Yeah.
He is the example that says it can still be done. And we talk about this with streaming, how streaming is destroying the marketability of films and the revenue that they could be having, right? For a number of reasons. We've talked about it so many times. And here's another revenue stream that keeps people hooked, right? The celebrity, the star, right? By destroying the situation that allows that to exist, it dries up revenue streams for me, and you are losing money as an industry.
Yeah. If these shows are a tax write-off, can they pull them off the shelf and show them in the future? That's what depends on that.
So that question came up on, I think it was a WDW Pro stream recently. And this is untested waters here, okay? If I take a tax write-off on, let's say I own a store selling widgets, right? And I'm going out of business. And I want to take a tax write-off on all the widgets that I have that haven't sold. I have to destroy them. I have to punch them out. I have to throw them in the garbage, right, whatever, and take the tax write-off. I am not allowed to double dip, right? Streaming is a different animal altogether. In theory, yeah, you take a tax write-off on something like a TV series. You just say, we'll never show it again. We want to take a tax write-off on the expenditure to make this series. Personally, I have a serious problem with that, but I guess that's how business is done. It's like an insurance policy with my tax dollar, but whatever. That's the way it works.
This doesn't strike me as on the up and up. I understood with Batgirl, that thing's never going to be seen by anybody. That thing's been buried, but it never made it to a streaming station. Never made it to a theater. It never made it anywhere. You know.
Yeah. Well, but here's the difference. Think about it this way: if I released, here's a good example. What if it was that Wonder Woman pilot that they were going to do, right? For
CW.
Yeah, right. And it was bad. It was not good. It was ambitious, but it was not good. Let's say they released it as a film, right? And they release it as a film and everyone can go see it and it flops. And then they put it on DVD and they get mediocre sales. I would argue, I'm sorry, you've already made money off of it. Yes, it was a flop. You can't take that as a tax write-off. But they never did anything with it. It was never meant to be seen by anyone. Then I could see them saying, yeah, this was a project we started that failed. That's part of our tax write-off, you know? If you release it on stream, how is that any different? You know, in theory, you're getting revenue based on your streaming service, but you can't tie it to that specific thing because it just doesn't work that way. You can't say, we got this much watch time or we got this many people start subscribing because they desperately wanted to see Gay Willow. You know, I mean, so... But by the same token, how do you claim it as a tax write-off too? It's a weird area that needs to be worked through.
I have a suspicion people in government aren't up on how to handle this stuff right
now. You think?
All right, let's go to the next one. Let's see, longest running. Likes Chris, but at the same time, I feel like he's quiet today. I wouldn't miss him. If he quit today, I wouldn't miss him. Today's stars just don't have the it factor anymore. I agree. I liked him best in that first Jurassic World movie, but then those got kind of stupid.
I didn't care for the movie itself, but he was good in it.
I liked it all right, but I know I'm in the minority.
Are we going with the opinion piece?
Yes.
Sarah
opinion
Stewart?
piece first.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Yep.
We're all over the place here tonight. I'm going to try to rush through these Little Mermaid articles. There are a few of them.
There's a bunch of them, yeah.
I'm not reading the whole thing. I'm just bringing up the main points. Opinion. I hated Little Mermaid movie. Opinion by Sarah Stewart, film and culture writer for CNN. So you can imagine what her political mindset is. So,
and that's interesting, you know, for someone to come out and say she hates something, but you suspect she's on that side of the aisle. It's kind of weird, right?
Just because it's a bad movie, that's why she doesn't like it.
Right.
I mean, I haven't seen it myself. I'm just going by what the critics said. You know. Disney's 1989 The Little Mermaid was at once a masterpiece of the brand and a somewhat cringy retelling of a very dark Hans Christian Andersen tale. The story of a mermaid who gives up her voice to be with the man of her dreams. It falls neatly into the Disney canon of plucky, curious teenage women whose pluck and curiosity mostly end up leading them into an early marriage. But it's also a ton of fun with a dazzling Howard Ashman, Alan Menken score, an iconic villain in Ursula, whose look was inspired by the drag queen Divine, and hilariously menacing sequence about cooking fish. Disney's had decades to think about how to update The Little Mermaid for new generations of viewers, which makes the dour, overlong, dimly-lit, and still pretty sexist product they've just released completely baffling. They've jettisoned the fish song Les Beaux-Ans, purportedly deeming it too cartoonish. What? But given a dull musical number to Prince Eric, they obscured the great Melissa McCarthy playing Ursula in a murk bottom of the ocean natural light, and they've retained the central plot, which confers happy ending approval on a young woman making bodily harming sacrifices in order to get the guy. Seriously. I can report that the children in my small town movie theater were checked out at best. More than one kid was wandering among the aisles by the time we passed the 90-minute mark of the 135-minute affair, which begs the question, who exactly is this movie for? Why does it exist? That's been a big complaint. This thing is way too long for a family picture. This latest chapter in Disney's never-ending quest to improve all of its hits, impose all of its hits on us again in live-action format is a profound miscalculation of your level, especially about how to revisit beloved animated property that boasts some pretty problematic themes. Okay, well, there's the buzzwords they like to use, but here we go. Goes on to say, this feels lousy to say because I was rooting for a huge success to follow the noxious backslash to the trailer last year. Some people apparently couldn't handle the audacity of reinventing a cartoon character as a black actress, but star Halle Bailey in the role of Ariel has nothing to apologize for. She's the best thing about this movie. Unfortunately, that's faint praise. And then, yeah, she goes on about the running time. Let's see. Everywhere you look, a detail in the movie has been slightly altered, but most end up being empty gestures rather than meaningful updates. For example, King Triton, Javier Bardem, who looks mostly bored, still has a bunch of adoring daughters who follow his every command, except now there's a rainbow of ethnic diversity. So what's the message here? Diversity is good as long as patriarchy remains intact.
Can I just say one thing about that cultural diversity thing? I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. It's nice that you have the diverse daughters that represent all the different cultures of the world." Blah 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 blah. Until you start thinking about that, King Triton got around, didn't he?
Or he's got a harem, maybe.
That means he has a wife in every port in order to have a daughter of every culture. Think about it. That's not a great idea for, because you do start thinking about that. I don't know about this new movie, but I know the original story, the mother had died. And this was a part of the backstory of why he hated, the man's world or whatever, because they were somehow responsible for his wife's death and whatnot. Now it's like, oh well, Ariel's mother got killed, but all the other mothers are still out there somewhere, unless that's not the case. Genetics just works differently in Disney, apparently.
Now I'm imagining a scene of Judge Lord Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame on a ship saying, "Oh, look at that mermaid! It's a creature of the devil. Shoot it or something."
Yeah, exactly, right.
I hate to think they're going to try to do a Hunchback remake. You never know. I don't know.
Big Al says his dragon had more than one prong. Yeah.
And in this iteration of Ursula's show-stopping number, Poor Unfortunate Souls, they removed the lines which she smacks down Ariel's doubt about losing her voice. The men up there don't like a lot of blabber. They think a girl who gossips is a bore. Come on, they're not all that impressed with conversation. True gentlemen avoid it when they can. But they dote and swoon and fawn on a lady who's withdrawn. It's she who holds her tongue who gets the man. As Alex Abad Santos of Vox tweeted, it's quite clearly the best part of the entire song that crystallizes cynical Ursula's worldview, and at the same time shows us how she's tricking Ariel. Mencken has said the change was made because the lines might make young girls somehow feel they shouldn't speak out of turn, which feels fairly patronizing. In my experience, kids are very good at knowing not to take a cartoon villain's advice at face value.
The problem here is that the whole point of the movie is that turns out to not be the truth. Giving up her voice runs the risk of not getting the guy. See, that's she's literally giving up what he fell in love with.
Mm-hmm. But apparently Lin-Manuel Miranda added some new music, notably a rap song for Aquafina as the sequel Scuttle number, which is briefly but so tonally different it brings the scene to a screeching halt. You've heard that song, right? I
have, yeah. Anyway, and interestingly, they've released the song on iTunes or whatever, without that opening little rap that everyone is constantly sharing and memeing.
Really?
Yes, but I'll tell you what, the internet is forever, and they're not letting it die. People know how horrible that is. I will listen to Let It Go on repeat for 10 years before I want to hear that scuttlebutt again.
He was the King Solomon. He had 700 concubines. Okay.
Yeah, we got 700 concubines. Who cares that Ariel's mom got killed? Big deal. I got 700 others.
Okay, so anyway, I was just giving that example that, even the people on the left are not caring as much for this movie, at least this one reviewer. I did talk to someone at work about it. They say that Prince Eric is basically a doof in the movie. He doesn't even save the day at the end like he did in the original animated version. But
so ironically, what they've basically made is now he's the MacGuffin. He's the prize to be won.
So,
which makes the morality that much better, right? When you flip it around, it's okay.
All right, so let's go to the next article. China box office.
Yeah, I gotta split this one.
I'm not gonna hang too much time on here.
This one's from Variety.
Yeah, so I think now we're dealing with the.
This was a big one that we were talking about on Deleted Scenes, Unscripted a little bit ago.
Fast X predictably won a second weekend at the top of the mainland China box office, driving its total past the 100 million mark. But the disappointing start for Disney's live-action Little Mermaid was the biggest talking point. Fast X learned, I should say it's Fast 10. I keep calling it Fast X. Fast 10 earned 17.6 million in China, according to the data from consultancy Artisan Gateway. That was a 66% drop compared with its opening weekend, but still gave the film 110 million cumulative after 12 days. And okay, so Little Mermaid, Disney's live-action revision of its classic animation tale, was only the second best-performing new release of the weekend and placed fifth on the weekend chart with a poor 2.5 million. It was beaten by the new release Japanese animation Sword Art Online the movie, with 3.8 million in fourth place. So let me see. And let me go on. Hold on.
So David is saying they made Ariel a murderer. If she's a murderer, then Eric was in the original movie. I'm sorry. When you take out the villain who turns into a kaiju who's trying to kill you, that's called self-defense. That's not murder.
Yeah. And I don't know. Does this surprise you at all?
No, not at all. What I do find ironic, though, is that this is the same thing that we're seeing with whether it's Bud Light or Target or anything else. You make all these changes to things to try to appeal to a certain demographic, and then not only do you lose all your audience that turns against you, but that audience you were going after also turns against you. An article that we don't have right now. The Little Mermaid slammed for pretending slavery didn't exist. Congratulations! You pandered, and now the people you were pandering to are turning on you. It's never enough. Stop doing it.
I did want to get into what the Chinese media was saying about this too. Discussion of Little Mermaid, in which the actor and singer Halle Bailey portrays the role again, raised some questions about how willing Chinese audiences are willing to watch films with prominent black characters. This has previously been debated around the Black Panther title and Star Wars promotion materials. Midweek, the Global Times, a state-controlled tabloid paper, lashed out at Disney and accused it of lowering the film's potential in China by casting a black actor in the role. Many Chinese netizens said that, like Snow White, the image of Mermaid Princess and Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale has long been rooted in their hearts, and it takes leaps of imagination to accept the new cast. The same editorial accused Disney of political correctness, an argument similar to the woke accusations made by political right wing in the United States, and said the film would likely not perform well in East Asian markets. It doubled down, saying the controversy surrounding Disney's forced inclusion of minorities in classic films is not about racism, but it's lazy and irresponsible storytelling strategy.
Yeah, stop right there. So there's an accusation coming out from, the pundits, the left wing, the Hollywood, pixie dusters, saying that I guess China is racist, right? Because they don't want a black Ariel. I don't hear anybody saying they want Ariel to be Asian. You know, it has nothing to do with the race you make her now. The problem is they see it as weakness. They see it as pandering. They see it for what it is. And that's what they're responding to. Not really the color of her skin, but the change. You know, if you'd always made Ariel black, no one would be having a problem with it. You know, and just as an aside, you know, Miles Morales was always black. No one has a problem with him being black. That movie's doing really well. So all the racists that didn't like Little Mermaid kind of put that aside for Spider-Man for some reason. No, that ain't how it works.
Good point. I did want to bring something else up, though. People are calling out China for these comments in these papers. Is Disney calling them out?
Well, you know, when I say there's people that are Disney and there are people that are pixie dusters that just ditto anything Disney would say and supporting them. And the industry that is propping up this business model, this obviously failed business model, right? And people with certain political bents, you know, neo-Marxists specifically.
So, Little Mermaid, you want to go to the next one? Little Mermaid dominates Memorial Day box office. This is domestic they're talking about here. All right.
Yeah, and this is very interesting because this is another one of those examples of when you have a headline that says something which might be technically true, but when you start digging into it, it tells a different story.
Yeah. Little Mermaid dominates Memorial Day box office with 118 million debuted. This is from Variety. And let me see here. 35 years after the animated story of Ariel, flame-haired siren of the sea who falls for a prince, charmed audiences, a live-action remake of The Little Mermaid dominated the Memorial Day weekend box office. Disney releases on track to debut to a massive 118 million over the 4-day holiday, with 96 million of that coming over a 3-day frame. It ranks as the 5th highest Memorial Day opening in history. The film got a lift from many of the same moviegoers who first fell in love with Ariel when she flitted across the big screen in 1988, as well as from the generations of fans who weren't alive when the original opened, but who were nevertheless weaned on the movie from its various appearances on DVD, television, and in more recent years streaming. And don't forget about the VHS version that came out with that cover that had to get removed anyway.
Right.
Okay. So again, I'm getting conflicting things about how this movie is doing. They're saying it's a hit. Maybe they're right, but go to the next bounding in the comments one.
Well, if we had taken some more time to do that, they compare it to other movies that are coming out, and the reality is, you think about the movies that it was up against. If it's number one at the box office, but everything else is meh and not having any draw, how big a success is that? You know, give me a second. Again, I gotta. These titles are so damn long, and these links are.
Well,
just
that's
ridiculous.
because it's a certain site. But I want to say hi to Logical Spock. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the chat. And okay, box office analyst predicts Little Mermaid will end up being a box office flop. Could lose up to 50 to 100 million.
And I dropped. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
these
got
impossibly
the
long links from this site, which is anyway. Box office analyst and YouTuber OMB Reviews shared his analysis of the box office receipts for this past Memorial Day weekend and predicted that the Walt Disney Company's latest release, The Little Mermaid, will end up being a box office flop. In a recent video upload, the analyst began, "We're going to talk about The Little Mermaid, how it's doing okay domestically, but internationally, oh boy, this movie is in a ton of trouble. Seeing that it has a simultaneous release in all the major markets overseas, with the one exception being Japan. However, if we are looking at the other markets in the East right now, it's not looking good at all prospects of the movie's international numbers, and the domestic really aren't that much better to be able to say it'll make up for any losses here or there." And then he asserted, "So what I'm saying is I think there's a good chance that we'll see The Little Mermaid end up being a box office flop, and let's just say it couldn't happen to a nicer company."
Right?
So I don't know. We'll see. It has yet to open up in Japan. I wonder how they'll receive it. What I found interesting about that China article, though, is an anime film got released over there as number 4. And I'm starting to think these anime big feature films are starting to do good box office in China, which is interesting because you don't really see that as much over here.
I think that we see it here in the United States. We see it in China now. We're seeing it all over the world. People are pushing back against this tokenizing, placating, pandering. And invariably, they're not taking their kids to see it. That's what we were talking about with that, that second article there and the racism and the so on and so forth. And it's like, look, we know what's going to happen. We know it's going to flop. And not only is it going to flop, but their Elemental is going to flop because if the Little Mermaid with the name it brings with it isn't going to make it a success, Elemental has no name to bring to the
I think Elemental is going to go under. Well, for starters, you have this, whatever I might think of it, this new Spider-Man movie is a big release. And I'm sure it's already peeling off. I mean, I don't know what the box office numbers are yet for this weekend, but I'm assuming Spider-Man is number one, the animated one that just came out. I don't know if that's digging into the Little Mermaid or not. How much that is. Oh, this next article.
Yeah, and you gotta love an article that you go into with a spelling error in the title, but whatever.
What's the spelling error?
Mustachio. That's not how you spell mustachio.
That's a hard word, though.
Then don't use it, or maybe use a dictionary. Maybe. I don't know. Man.
At first, I thought the guy in the dress was going to say, "It's a Mario."
Oh no, that's the other park.
Maybe take your kids to that park. There is a Super Nintendo Land in Los Angeles. That area, maybe Hollywood, California, like where Universal Studios is now. Super Nintendo Land is open over there. Conservative critics are once again slamming Disney for shoving quote-unquote woke agendas down the throats of children, this time by allowing an apparently male employee to wear a costume, dress, and makeup. A viral video, which has racked up nearly 7 million views on TikTok, shows the mustachioed fairy godmother's apprentice welcoming a young girl at Disneyland's Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique in Anaheim, California. So, my name is Nick. I am one of the fairy godmother's apprentices, said the employees, who's seen wearing blue and purple eyeshadow to match their uniform dress. I'm here to shop for you around and make all your selections for the day. Court Farber, an influencer and mother of three who posted the original video, did not criticize the employee's outfit, but instead applauded workers for giving her daughter an unforgettable experience at the boutique, where children between the ages of 3 and 12 can get magical makeovers for royalty and training. However, that didn't stop a reign of conservatives from blasting Disney. A man in drag is not only bizarre and inappropriate, but it takes guests out of the show. The illusion is broken. Nothing matters but the agenda of your 4-year-old is a pawn they are happy to mind flay, said conservative writer Peachy Keenan. David Rubin, the host of the Rubin Report, joked that the employee would be hired to work for the Biden administration by the end of the day. Again, they're calling Dave Rubin a conservative. I don't think he's a conservative. I just don't think he's part of the woke left. That's not the same thing. But anyway, what's particularly interesting about this is how intentional it is. This is a dude with a mustache and a dress, not a trans person. Think how many real girls want that job at Disney, and they give it to him for a reason, he added. Brendan Morris, an editor at Red State, tweeted, "May you never suffer the same destruction of your legacy that poor Walt has. This is disgusting and wrong," tweeted Jenna Ellis, a lawyer known for working under former President Donald Trump. "I remember when the Disney look didn't even let women wear certain nail polish colors. Now this. The Mouse House's Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutiques have foregone gender norms since last summer in an effort to encourage inclusivity and benefit cast members who don't necessarily identify as female. Disney ditched the fairy godmother in training title in favor of fairy godmother's apprentices. This way, cast members that might not identify as female can still be part of the process to dress up and style the children without having to refer to themselves as a female Disney character," the corporation said at the time. This was under Bob Chapek, wasn't it?
Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
The guy was going to change everything for the better, remember?
Yeah, but he had no ability to do so. I remember being banned from a YouTube channel because I referred to him as feckless. Well,
did you see the video in question online?
no, I didn't.
It was rather because I kept thinking maybe they get, hey Jerry, Cindy called off work today. You got to get in the dress. I thought that was going on here. No, it's very weird, and the fact the guy has a mustache as well. It's.
Yep.
I mean, what's more masculine than a mustache, right?
Well, full beard.
I don't know. I'm just saying a full beard. I don't know. I'm just the whole scene is I don't know. I found it rather cringy myself, but I don't know. Maybe the chat has another opinion, right? But in the meantime, then people start arguing back and forth, and I'm thinking, are you having fun at this park right now?
Yeah. You know, anything that just makes you feel uncomfortable. I mean, there was a time when Disney would avoid anything that made anyone feel uncomfortable, you know? But they're literally going out of their way to make certain people feel uncomfortable intentionally.
Bobby World, welcome. Bobby Wald. Okay, I was thinking Bobby's World, which we talked about on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear Net doing a very good Bobby impersonation, you know, for the famous Howie Mandel character. All right.
Should we move over to the other park?
I guess.
Okay.
You don't want to spend more time on this article?
I don't want to give Disney any more attention than absolutely necessary.
Okay. I don't know. I kept bringing up Cinderfella, and you said that was a good movie. That wasn't this thing.
I know, right?
It's like, okay. The Super Mario Brothers movie sets box office record in Japan, underlying Hollywood recovery. Well, so it's no longer it did good post-pandemic numbers, right? It's beaten out the original Frozen. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It still hasn't beaten out Frozen 2. I'm not sure how Frozen 2 beat out Frozen 1, unless maybe it was more of an international box office success. Maybe.
Well, I don't know.
That one did
and
well
maybe
in China. I don't know.
Maybe because the first one did so well, and you know the love of the songs and the stuff, the girls will go, okay, well, there's another one. I want to go see that one now. You know, and you build that momentum. You know, even if the second movie isn't as good, you know, you got that draw. We're just learning all the wrong messages, though.
So, I'll read anyway. Let me go ahead and read. So I'll be curious to see how the Little Mermaid does when it opens in Japan. But after opening April 28th in Japan, the Super Mario Brothers movie has hit the JPY 10 billion, 71 million milestone in just 31 days, the quickest ever by a non-Japanese animation in the Japanese market. In the latest 3-day period from May 28th to 28th, someone did an error there. The film earned 625 million for, I guess, 4.5 million, bringing its cumulative box office to 71.7 million, according to figures supplied by distributor Toho Tawa. Based on an iconic Japanese game series, the Super Mario Brothers movie currently ranks third all time at the worldwide box office for animated films, behind Frozen and Frozen 2. Toho Tawa has not issued a final earnings forecast for the film, and the title still has a way to go to catch up Japan's all-time box office leader, the locally produced Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Mugen Train. That's a title.
Yeah.
That earned Japan 40.4 billion, 288 million in 2020. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yeah, did well. It's interesting. I think Mark Kermode would like that one a lot.
Do you think it would have done better if they would have made Mario and his brother, like, you know, a different color or gender swap them or something like that?
Well, the funny thing is that the actual voice cast is actually fairly diverse, but they're playing these different characters, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, you're not allowed to do that though. You're not allowed, right? Right? If you're playing a white person, you gotta have a white actor. If you're playing a black character, it's gotta be a black actor. I don't know what the hell they're supposed to do with Bowser. I mean,
did you know on Spider-Man the animated series, the Kingpin was played by a black voice actor?
Nope.
Yeah.
Didn't notice. Didn't care.
Yeah, because But
honestly, I'll be honest with you. Of all the so-called race swaps that I've ever seen. Michael Claude Duncan playing the Kingpin, I was good with.
I understood that reasoning because you wanted to get a large man in shape. Now, to be fair, I did like Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal as well.
Yes.
But I understood at the time why they cast Michael Clark Duncan, because you were wanting someone who was large and intimidating.
And if you are focused on the backstory of the Kingpin, a young black kid growing up in Harlem works just as well as a young white kid growing up in Harlem. You know,
Sure.
I mean, either way, he's got the same background. They did a good job by that character development. But yeah.
It was interesting. I remember one of the Spider-Man games where they were talking about the Kingpin, explaining how can this guy go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. And they said, there's a lot of muscle on him, too. He's like a sumo wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually been some speculation in the comics in universe about whether or not he's a mutant, like he's got some, superhuman strength, or if he's just like, peak human or what it is.
Well, it's like that. There's a Hong Kong actor, Sammo Hung. I don't know if you've ever seen him in works. He got into acting around the same time as Jackie Chan and all of them. Mm-hmm. And he was a larger fellow, but man, that guy could kick ass.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's sort of how I saw the Kingpin. But
I think that was the intent. Yeah.
Apparently, this is going to be getting a DVD release soon. If rumors holds true, Nintendo. They are not wanting that release date to get announced because I think people are still going to theaters to see this thing.
And that makes perfect sense. Plan to set it out, put it out on DVD, but don't do it until you're ready to take it out of the theaters.
I think someone had leaked the date. There's a rumor going around that not this week, but next week it will finally get its DVD release. You can now rent it online because it's available now for renting. But,
yeah. Okay.
So we'll see. All right, what's this? Deleted scenes. Please join me after the show for the other side of midnight.
Oh yeah.
Starting at 12:15. It should be some good stuff.
I'm gonna have to start putting Other Side of Midnight into the weekly rotation. Yeah.
I'll start putting it in my notes too.
Yep.
But follow the link. I'll remind everybody at the end. Let's go on to Gollum.
Did I? I did not.
The Lord of the Ring Gollum.
Well, kinda.
I
mean, if you squint and cross your eyes and
Well, with another joke is that the headline makes a point. This from Forbes. In their apology letter that the company released, they called it Lord of the Ring and not Lord of the Rings. Do you understand?
Yeah. Oh, Lord of the Ring singular, and they're referring specifically to Gollum.
No, they just screwed up. Unless
oh, jeez. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt as something a little bit clever here.
I think my headline for this was Gollum Game Bad. I think it was just, I got nothing else to say. I was thrown for a loop because it used to be in the past that Warner Brothers Game Development made the Lord of the Rings games, right? Because they had the movie license.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't think that's what this is. This is
weird.
This is something else. Yeah. So
this is weird.
Gollum is the worst reviewed release of the year with a 36 Manus score and almost impressive achievement. And as such, developer Daedalic has issued an apology for the state of the game and promised to fix what they can. It's a pretty odd statement, including one that gets the title of the game wrong, calling it The Lord of the Ring Gollum in the first sentence. The apology talks about how it was their biggest project and an honor to take on the Lord of the Rings intellectual property. They talked about listening to feedback and apologizing for disappointing fans. They will fix bugs and technical issues, but fundamentally the game is the game, and why it's reviewing so poorly has little to do with actual bugs and tech problems. It's just not a good game in any sense. Part of the controversy here was that not just the state of the game, but the fact Daedalic was charging $60 for it. $70 with odd extra features like Elvish language voiceover and bad emotes. though this has sparked a separate debate as to whether developers need to apologize to fans at all, even for big missteps. But this adds to a long, long list of video game apologize text blocks like the saying, "Sorry for technical problems, game delays, and so forth." It's becoming an industry meme. It's hard to make games, of course, but we are seeing loads of these in recent years, but none for a game as poorly received as Gollum.
And I will speak to that thing about apologizing. You absolutely need to apologize to your audience. Just like if you go into McDonald's and they give you the wrong sandwich, or they, put cheese on your hamburger and you're lactose intolerant or something, they better fucking apologize to you if they want your business ever again. I mean, it's just the way you treat people, right? I'm giving you money. I want something. I don't like what I got. Do you ever want to get my money again? You better kiss my ass.
I've been watching AZ lose his mind playing that game. The graphics are on PS2 level. Fat Steven Seagal should play this game. Maybe not.
I don't know, man.
Well, yes, they made a bad Gollum game. I'm probably more curious about the state of Lord of the Rings IP, period. Amazon has reportedly spent $1 billion on its Prime series, The Rings of Power, made by first-time showrunners, which at its best is just an okay and a poor shadow of the original film trilogy. There's this game, Gollum. Whoever decided a Gollum game needed to be made in the first place, and an upcoming Lord of the Rings massive multiplayer online RPG being handled by Amazon Games, which failed to make New World much of a hit. Its other original MMO and Embracer Group, whose stock just crashed 40% after they failed to secure a $2 billion mystery deal. I don't think those handling the IP now really know how to use it effectively or trust the right people with it. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, exactly.
We are a long, long way from the original trilogy, and the licensed games from back then were actually quite good. Even the last Shadow of Mordor game was bad. Yeah, that's what I'd heard. I think they put all sorts of microtransactions in it. I could be wrong. I think that's what the issue was with that. As for Gollum, I don't think we need an apology for it, and I'm not offended a Gollum game I wasn't going to play anyway is bad. But this is legitimately one of the lowest scores for a recognizable IP game I've seen in years, and I would love to know exactly what it was that happened here from conception to release. It's funny. Even in recent years, but especially back in the day, usually if your video game you bought was based on a license, half the time it could be trash.
Yeah.
Because they paid the money for the license.
Oh, look at the E.T. game for Atari 2600.
That's a prime example of what I'm talking about, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't really feel like the Indiana Jones game was significantly better. It was very, very similar. So people that enjoyed that, I'm glad, but, I don't want to hear you bitching about E.T. then.
It was probably when LucasArts started making its own stuff. That those games turned out better. I think George Lucas understood games were important, that he had to, take that by the reins. But from what I can tell, Gollum is just a terrible game in general. You know what I found funny, though? When I first saw it, I thought it was based on the New Line series. Because I saw Gollum, and I'm like, oh, that's the New Line Gollum. And then when I look at it more carefully, I'm like, no, that's not the New Line Gollum.
No.
I think it's meant to look 85%, 75% close enough.
Oh, it does. It looks significantly different. No doubt there. No confusing those IPs. No, not at all.
I think it's meant to, you're doing a quick glance, and you're like, oh, that's the New Line Lord. No, that's some other thing. And if they had done their own Gollum design, that would have been fine and made it cool.
It's Andy Serkis on a bender without CG and a bad toupee. That's what it is.
Pretty much. Well, this probably shows you how he lost the hair, right?
Oh, God.
That'll be a plot element in the game. I'm kidding. All right. Time to move on to other gaming news. Part of me almost wanted to go through this entire thing, and we'll see if I will. It goes on forever. This is from Blizzard's company website.
This is another really.
Maybe you could fix the Diablo 2 remake instead of doing this nonsense, Blizzard. But what can
there is no way I can get the link in there.
It's from the main Blizzard website. Just deal with it. All right, Blizzard. Pride is coming to Overwatch 2. Overwatch 2 is a joyful escape for millions of players worldwide. We always set out to create a futuristic world that's worth fighting for, where everyone feels seen and celebrated. This game is
Sorry,
totally...
got it. My apologies.
Okay. It's all right. I'll go ahead and post the link here. This article is funny in that it goes on, or this, I guess this is a press release, not an article, and it goes on forever. This game is only worthy of that hopeful world if people can connect with our heroes and see themselves in the universe. We want Pride to be that for our players, and just as important, we wanted that for ourselves. One thing we have heard from both players and Overwatch team members alike is that seeing themselves in the game over the years has helped them find the strength and courage to show the world who they are. We're a diverse development team. Okay, so core 10 of Overwatch 2 is giving everyone a chance to play what they want by choosing between different roles, unique play styles, and diverse heroes that best fit each person's individuality. Outside of matches, we want people playing Overwatch 2 to have a way to proudly celebrate who they are. Cosmetics such as player icons and name cards are meant to represent that for those reflections of themselves in the universe. Beginning on June 1st, here we go. Everyone that logs into Overwatch 2 will receive an extensive collection of profile player icons and name cards celebrating the many diverse identities that make up the tapestry of this fantastic community. The full list of cosmetics can be found below. Name cards allow you to choose how you identify within the game, and you'll notice specific ones dedicated to some of our LGBTQ plus heroes. You'll find a lesbian card for Tracer, a gay card for Soldier 76, a pansexual card for Lifeweaver, as well as a bisexual card for Baptiste and a lesbian card for Farah. For years, players have speculated on the sexual orientations of Baptiste and Farah, and we are thrilled to not only include them in these Pride cosmetics, but to also publish a brand new short story focusing on their identities, each other, and themselves. And let's see, Midtown map taking place shortly after Fantastic Pride Parade. Watchpoint Gibraltar will see the addition of a new photo in the brackets barracks of Tracer and her partner Emily. This includes a new spray that can be equipped with Tracer. We hope this provides some connection to these characters for any players who have always wanted to take part in real life and world events but are unable to. For those wondering why now, we love our characters and their lore and are in expanding the Overwatch 2 experience to include the upcoming PvE lore. We realize how much more we can do in exploring our characters' identities and relationships. With our first Overwatch 2 Pride event, we knew we wanted to make celebrating diversity that makes the world worth fighting for. This is just the beginning of Pride in Overwatch 2. Over the coming seasons and years, we have more to share to the deeper lore of the Overwatch universe unfolds. These are the StarCraft guys, in case you're wondering, Troy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the other thing. I noticed this article focuses a lot on the diversity and the this and the that and so forth. But my understanding is that there's more problems with this the release on this than just this forced diversity. And you don't have a choice in this. You have to opt in.
You have to take part. I guess you have to. It's like if you're at a company and they make you put on a badge saying what your pronouns are or something.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, so that's bad enough.
Yeah.
But the way they've rolled this out and the DLC and the pay in advance and stuff. Yeah, I've been hearing some bad things about this stuff. I don't really understand, not being the kind of gamers that you are. But
I don't play this game either.
Oh, okay.
This belongs, I think, to the what do they call them? Battle Royale games. This is I guess a Fortnite competitor. Is that correct?
I
Fortnite?
guess.
And I mean, popular, I think, with the younger set. Maybe people my age play it as well. I do know I find it interesting that Tracer was a popular character among the male players, so they of course made her a lesbian later on. So I think to mess with them, but.
I'm sure that there's probably some deviant art out there about it, so it probably works just fine for the gamers that are into that kind of thing.
More division, it's a trap. Hold on. Troy did send this to me for the stream. Apparently Xbox and GLAD signed up together to add members of the LGBT community to add inclusive video game characters. Interesting. I know that you had mentioned the fact that they changed their pride symbol. That was something.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. 3 days into the so-called Pride Month, they dropped it, and that I think that's I'm seeing more and more companies that are looking at what's happening with Target and Bud Light and all the others and going, you know what? Maybe we know. You know? Maybe not.
Yeah, but Blizzard is part of Activision. You know, they've been in the news a lot. I know Microsoft's trying to buy them out still. And of course, there was all the controversy last year about I guess, the harassment that was going on there, which I don't know if that ever got brought to court and finalized or what was going on there. But
I didn't follow it. And see, that's the problem with this stuff. They get the sensational headline, and then you never hear what turns out with it, you know, because it's probably pretty boring.
I guess so. Or it gets tied up in court for too long.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that too. But what do they say? The wheels of justice move slowly, but they grind fine, or something like that.
I've never heard that expression.
Yeah.
They grind fine?
Yes, the wheels, you know, like in a mill that grind.
Like in a mill. I always thought it was like on a wagon or something, but anyway.
I could see why. Yeah, okay, I could see that too, but no, that's not what it meant.
So we have a Critical Role article next, right?
Yes, we do. Where is it? Okay. And I'm guessing that this acronym here is Tears of the Kingdom, I believe.
Yes, I think they finally decided that.
I was trying to figure out how the Ocarina of Time fit that acronym, but that's not what it is.
Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know if the Ocarina
Tears or Tears of the Kingdom, whatever it is.
You got other stuff in Tears of the thing he has in Tears of the Kingdom is something on his arm that allows him to lift things and stuff. It's some weird. I don't know. I've not been playing the game myself yet. I do own a copy though because I wanted to support Nintendo as being one of the few gaming companies out there that will at least put out a game I want to buy every so often. But
fair enough.
You can now watch Critical Role's full Zelda Tears of the Kingdom themed one-shot special on YouTube. Did you say they were having trouble with Wizards of the Coast?
Oh, no trouble at all. They have completely walked away from Wizards of the Coast. They will not be using Dungeons and Dragons anymore. They are putting out their own rule set that they will be featuring in their ongoing streaming show.
So it's interesting that Nintendo officially, this is an official Nintendo endorsed stream. They actually went to them and said you can do a role-playing game session set in the world of Tears of the Kingdom. So
yeah,
I thought that was interesting. So
and there's no what would you call it? It's not like there's a conflict of interest because it's not like, you know, it's a different game set or it's a completely different kind of game. So, you know, it's not like Nintendo has a role-playing game that, you know, would, you know,
not one that you can buy, no.
Yeah, exactly.
It was interesting. I remember when Diablo 2 came out, the original Diablo 2 back in the 90s, it came with little modules you could use with a D&D campaign to set in the world of Diablo 2.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
The World of Sanctuary, which I thought was kind of neat that they included that in, like, if you bought the collector's edition of the game. But,
I mean, that is kind of cool, actually. So, I mean,
after streaming the event on Twitch and YouTube earlier this week, Critical Role Zelda Tears of the Kingdom one-shot tabletop RPG is now available to watch in full on YouTube. The 5-hour special is led by Ganondorf voice actor Matt Mercer and tells an original story set in the Tears of the Kingdom Hyrule. And now this goes back to the original article. For all we know, Nintendo is planning to roll out a pen and paper Zelda RPG. You never know.
It seems unlikely they'd agree to a license like this, though, if that was the case.
What do you mean?
Well, if you are thinking about doing a role-playing game, you're not going to go to someone who has their own role-playing thing and license.
Well, maybe they could license it to them to make an official thing as long as they don't do anything weird, right? With it.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And if that's the case, then what a great synergy. That's kind of brilliant, actually.
We'll see. I'm not saying that's what they're trying to do, but I thought it was odd they decided. The open world fantasy, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, would lend itself nicely to some tabletop RPG action in the real world, wouldn't you say? With this exact combination of mind, Nintendo has teamed up with tabletop YouTube channel turned multi-platform entertainment company Critical Role to create a special one-shot story set in Tears of the Kingdom's Hyrule. The special features and or original story scenario and characters, all drawn from Tears of the Kingdom's world, with none other than Ganondorf voice actor Matt Mercer as Game Master. It aired yesterday on the Critical Role Twitch and YouTube channels. But have no fear if you missed out, because the full video will be available to watch from 1st of June at 12 p.m. on YouTube. Okay, so you can watch it now if you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, which, yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you've watched any of Critical Role, but it is enjoyable. It really is. So, I mean...
Is there some hammy acting on it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've referred to it myself as role-playing game reality television. I think we all understand that reality television is not reality. It is truly scripted and made to look as though it's, improvisational and,
Right.
I can guarantee you that a lot of this Critical Role is advanced scripted, but it's still a lot of fun. What I've seen of it, I've really enjoyed.
I'm trying to think, you can play different races, and there are different races in the Zelda games too. You can play as. I don't know.
Are we allowed to talk about races anymore?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Speaking of which, that brings us to our next article.
Well, and it does also the pulling away from Wizards of the Coast IPs by other parties.
Now, what's interesting about the races in Hyrule, they're the Hylians, which is what Link belongs to. He looks like an elf, basically. But the other races, I realized they each represent fire, earth, wind, and water. They're all like stand-ins for those.
Oh, interesting.
You understand? Because you have you have a race of aquatic people that live in the sea. You have or in waters, and then you have another race of these big giant guys that live in the mountains. So they're the rocks. And then, of course, there's a bird race that got introduced more recently, and of course they're air. So
sure.
But in fact, the villain came from the fire people, though the fire people are on the side of the people trying to stop him now. But Pathfinder drops the Drow after moving away from D&D. I'm assuming that Drow is
the Dark Elves.
Yeah,
yes.
Dark Elves, but they're licensed.
Well, just like so many other things with Dungeons and Dragons, they are creatures of folklore. If you those of you that saw that first Thor movie, and they talked about the Dark Elves,
right?
They were the Drow. This comes from Norse mythology. Obviously, the way that they are depicted in Dungeons and Dragons is their own proprietary thing. That's why they're not dropping the Drow completely over at Pathfinder. They are retconning them, and I'll explain that more as you get into the article.
All right. Paizo is retconning the Drow out of Pathfinder 2e. A live stream from May 28th confirms. The move appears directly tied to the D&D OGL controversy from earlier this year,
which we all talked about here. Yeah.
As narrative creator James Jacobs says, the removal comes from the Drow being relatively identified with Dungeons and Dragons. It's easier to move in a different direction rather than figure out how to recast or recontextualize them. Okay.
Yeah.
The Drow are one of the classic D&D races invented by Gary Gygax and found in D&D books as early as 1977, also known as Dark Elves. The Drow have dark skin and white hair. In Dungeons and Dragons, they're typically found in the Underdark, worshipping the evil goddess Lolth.
Yeah.
Lolth, okay. Like the Orcs, the Drow have been critiqued in the past for racial stereotyping, as they inherently link dark skin with evil D&D alignments. While Pathfinder was originally built on the foundations of D&D, Paizo is sought to cut ties since the proposed changes to the Open Gaming license. This means creating its own third-party license, the ORC, and remastering its core rulebook. As FAQ page makes it clear, Pathfinder Remastered is not a new edition, and two older 2e books remain compatible. This means Drow can still be used in Pathfinder games, but they're no longer part of Golarian's canon. Darklands are really deeply entrenched in the tradition of the OGL, and a lot of the creatures are from that resource, Jacobs says in Sunday's PaCon live stream. And going forward, those are not going to be things. Jacobs has reportedly penned an article around in the upcoming adventure Sky King's Tomb detailing changes to Drow lore. Pathfinder Korea Asmarin is revealed to have fiddled with the truth a bit when reporting on the Drow. The Drow city of
Menzo Baranzan?
Of what?
Is it Menzo Baranzan?
Zernakainin.
Oh, they've changed it in Pathfinder. Okay, that's fine.
Is now a ruin of mysterious origin, and developer Louis Loza said Serpent Folk will take over as the primary villain in the Darklands, the setting where the Drow were previously found. Interesting. Are they like the kind from those Robert E. Howard stories? The Serpent People?
Oh, kind of, yeah.
While the Drow are out, other Pathfinder races from the Darklands remain, albeit with significant changes to their backstories. One such ancestry is Pathfinder's Deep Gnomes, who have been renamed and reflavored in a further departure from D&D. Senior designer John Compton explains this ancestry has been revised to remove its ties to slavery, and he has re-envisioned what makes the Deep Gnome tick in the upcoming Pathfinder books. These creatures are an example of where we could take old ideas and shape them into new Pathfinder stuff, Loza says in the PaCon stream, but the Drow isn't one of those we could easily salvage. There's a lot of baggage that comes with the Drow, he adds, and a lot of D&D-ness, and we realize we unfortunately are going to have to leave them behind. Pathfinder and D&D have a lot in common, with plenty of crossover between D&D classes and Pathfinder classes. If you're looking for major differences between Pathfinder and D&D, here's all you need to know. You can follow the link there in the article. Yeah. We can also tell you more about the upcoming Howl of the Wild Pathfinder book in our exclusive preview. What do you think?
So, a lot of people want to paint this as the racial thing, and, like you mentioned earlier in the article, that does not seem to be, though, what Pathfinder is actually trying to do here. I think ever since the OGL dust-up, everybody that did third-party work for Wizards of the Coast is pulling away. It happened with Critical Role. That's why they're starting their own, and they're no longer going to be, using Dungeons & Dragons in their streams. And that's why Paizo is going, we already separated from you and have our own thing. We had a good relationship. That's done. We are doing everything we can to make sure that we are using nothing that Wizards of the Coast can ever say, you stole that from us. And if you want to call it 20% different or whatever you want, however you want to look at it. But I would not be surprised if going forward, they don't re-embrace the concept of the Drow, but they change the name. Call them Dark Elves, call them something else, but it's not like, D&D has an ownership on the folklore upon which the Drow are based, but, it has become a branding concept that people associate it with Wizards of the Coast now, just like, nobody owns the copyright on the ability to make a reproducing machine, but, most people think of Xerox, so.
Yeah, so it's the name.
So they are definitely going to distance themselves from it. Interestingly, and this is not like...
so D&D is McDonald's and they want to be Burger King of RPGs.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And they're going to have their own hamburger. They're just not going to call it a Big Mac, It'll be a Whopper. It's going to be its own unique thing. It's not going to be made with a secret sauce. It's going to have its own stuff. My gaming group, my buddy Chris, created the world that we're playing in. It's called Corwin. It has nothing... Well, it is similar to every fantasy game setting you've ever seen. A lot of it's stolen directly from Tolkien, real world history, whatever we wanted to infuse into our game, we stole from, right? This isn't like it's a commercial venture where we have to worry about, things like that. But in his game setting, we of course use the Drow, but we don't call them Drow. We call them Drothare, because all the elves are going to have their own elvish name for their individual groupings.
Right.
I think that makes perfect sense, you know? So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Paizo do this exact same thing, you know, going forward.
So it should be interesting, though. It may end up being its own unique creation at some point. I mean, I don't...
Yeah, everybody wants to distance themselves from Wizards of the Coast, and I understand that. I really, really do.
Okay, so it should be interesting to see where they are going forward. Are they still? I take it in Pathfinder you still have classic races like dwarves and elves and and humans and stuff. Okay.
So far, we'll see what the future holds.
All right, so we'll see, and let me see. I believe the term you're looking for is generic sizing or something similar.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Magic the Gathering's Aragorn backlash is just another racist trap. I wasn't sure. I thought you would put that on there. That was them.
Nope. Yep.
Article this.
That's the title on the article. Yeah.
I'm not reading this whole thing. I'm reading a portion of it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I hopefully will get the point across. Another year, another Lord of the Rings adaptation under fire. The same week as Ismael Cruz Cordova revealed that Amazon hired an on-set therapist to help actors fight against racist backlash while filming The Rings of Power second season, abuse which racists then denied and demanded receipts for. People are angry that Magic the Gathering's Aragorn is black. Generally speaking, engaging with racists is a losing battle. They don't care about facts. Their arguments are contradictory and make no sense, and they are not beholden to the visual rules of debate, using and accepting facts or adjusting arguments.
You know, maybe you don't even need to continue reading that much of it.
No. I'm gonna just get to the main point. Relax.
Okay.
I have a point because I think he is what he accuses others of being.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, using accepting facts and readjusting arguments when presented with new information. However, if you wanted a resource to explain why characters may have different skin colors and different adaptations, or simple examples that disprove certain arguments, that I've got you covered. Despite the latest round of the whole discourse arising from a card that depicts a sword, we'll get to Andrew later. It's the bearer who has borne the brunt of the backlash. Magic the Gathering's Aragorn is black, and people predictably have a problem with that, like they did with Kadim too. The most common criticism is that Aragorn is descended from Númenóreans. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
And they were all white. I don't buy it, even if we're ignoring the fact that Númenóreans are made up and Middle-earth is make-believe. There are plenty of people of color in Tolkien's work. There are entire populations that are described as being majority people of color, mostly in the Harad in the east, places where Númenórean expeditions canonically invaded and colonized. Umbar was a city created by Númenórean forces, and you're telling me that people stayed completely separate at all times. They didn't so much as look at one another, let alone form relationships or have children. There's plenty of room for lore-accurate description or mixed-race Númenóreans if you're willing to actually think about it. Another criticism of Magic's Aragorn is that Tolkien described him as white. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate these critics on actually reading the books, which can't be said for those in the above group. To this point, however, I have a few questions. The nature of adaptations to adapt, it's right there in the name, and there is room for people of color in modern retellings of old stories. Why is it only characters that have been swapped from traditionally or canonically white-skinned descriptions that you care about, and why only now? Okay, I went ahead and the rest of the article is here, but I went ahead and made it a different color because I'm going through all this. But I want to get to the last paragraph. Mm-hmm. When it comes to interpretations and adaptations, why would you want things to be boring? We've seen countless white Aragorns and even more plain silver swords. So why would you want the same again? Even if you don't like an adaptation or an artistic choice that doesn't ruin the books, they're still there. Magic the Gathering hasn't stolen or burned every copy of the Fellowship of the Ring that you own. It's put its own spin on a fantasy world. This is all make-believe, so dream bigger. I want to share a little quote here. This is a quote from the text, I believe, of Fellowship of the Ring. This is describing Aragorn. A shaggy head of dark hair flecked with gray, and in a pale, stern face, a pair of keen gray eyes. That's from the book.
Right.
The point is Tolkien's already giving you a physical description of the character.
Yeah. So all of the other bullshit that he's putting out there is just gaslighting. It's no different than the bullshit that we saw surrounding this whole Cleopatra thing. Well, this could have happened and that could have happened, and there was this history and that history. Yeah, but that's not what happened. We already know. You're making shit up, trying to do mental gymnastics to make it fit. And you're using it's just fiction. Yeah, it's just fiction. But you change enough of it, it's no longer the fiction that we signed up for. If you decide that Superman, he doesn't need to wear a cape. And, that S on his chest, it doesn't have to be an S, it could be a U. And, instead of making him white, we'll make him black. But instead of having dark hair, we'll make him blonde. At some point, he's no longer Superman. He is a completely unique character.
Well, then he'd use the article, and of course, it's but a flying alien from another planet. Come on, you're he's using the same argument.
That's real great until someone decides. Well, then you know what? It's just a fictional character. I'll write my own Superman story. No, trademark, copyright. Oh, but it's fiction.
Okay, so. Keep in mind that a lot of the stuff in Lord of the Rings is based on lore and myth from England as well as some other countries, but mainly, a lot of English in there. Tolkien wanted to make his
This
own.
goes back to what you were saying too, though, about the rights owners on this have just checked out, and just now it's a free-for-all and anyone could do whatever the fuck they want with it. However, we are also talking about Wizards of the Coast that has absolutely zero respect from their audience in the bank any longer, that are going to come and go, oh yeah, we'll stand behind you because we got to have those cards. People are dumping their cards. This does not help them at all.
Why does Magic need licensed cards? I thought Magic took place in its own fantasy world.
Well, it does, but if you have a customizable card game and you can do a licensing agreement, I mean, just like, a Critical Role doesn't need to use Hyrule in their gaming sessions or whatever, but there's a synergy there, right? So sure, let's do a pack. The Tolkien estate makes some money off it. Whoever the license holder is, they make some money off it. Magic the Gathering puts out some new cards. You want them, you can get them. But it doesn't help to antagonize an already very antagonized fandom. This does not help your business.
Well, especially after sending the Pinkertons to their house.
Exactly right. Exactly.
There was a YouTuber I listened to called The Distributist. He did a whole stream on this this past week. He's a reactionary guy. He was talking about he gave the whole history of Magic the Gathering. He said that back in the 90s, they were trying to figure out ways to include more, I guess, racial diversity in the game. And they came up with this whole world that was based on African mythology and like Middle Eastern mythology combined in one. And he said it worked really well and all this stuff was cool, just like the other Magic cards, except it was based on stuff from that part of the world,
Yeah.
Like how a witch would look in that part of the world versus. And he said that back then, the same types didn't care about this. And just like they don't care about now. And he says this is more about tearing down something like the Lord of the Rings than it is about really helping with diversity causes. That's what he was, I think. I don't want to make sure I didn't take his words out of context, but that was the impression I got from him on his channel. And do you notice all the condescending language in here?
Oh, yeah.
And another thing he keeps saying, no one's coming after your books, and I want to count BS. They're not coming after the books. Well,
they absolutely are.
5 or 10 years where they're going to try to add some forced diversity. Maybe they'll even start to add forced other things in there too. And they're going to remark, oh, well, if Tolkien was alive today, he would surely be adding this stuff in now,
He's not, and he didn't. Leave it the hell alone. Cultural vandals.
This is for the English. This was supposed to be an English epic. Tolkien was writing an English epic. That's what he wanted to write. It's not. Everyone is reading all this stuff into this. That's not there. And as I said, he makes this weird argument about how this group went to another part of the world and blah blah blah. And okay, well, whether or not there was intermarriage or something with this other group,
but this is why I said this is the exact same argument with Cleopatra, right? Well, we know that it's in Africa and all Africans are black, right?
Yeah, Yes, well, I know with that they were going based on artwork of her as well, made around the time when she was alive. That was another thing, and also records of who she was.
Yeah.
In
So
this case, it doesn't matter. Yes, it's a fictional world created by a man. Canon matters.
yeah.
This is the text. The text gives the description of what he looks like.
Yeah, Matt, I knew he said I really hate when they argue fiction equals no rules. And I said, you know, it's their way, and I used the wrong there because I was listening to what you were saying too.
Okay.
Their way of justifying their own mediocrity, lack of originality, and laziness.
No,
I mean, if you want to create a story about another character and make him black, go for it. You don't take someone else's character and decide, well, it's fiction anyway, I can make it black.
they could have done an Earthsea expansion for this if they want to do that. They could have done a Magic Earthsea thing, right? Because I think that, and I think Ursula K. Le Guin did just that. She was trying to create something that didn't look like Lord of the Rings. She was wanting to go in a different area. But I really hate when people argue fiction equals no rules. You have to have rules in your fiction, especially you especially have to have rules when you're creating fantastic worlds. Otherwise, the fantastic world is no longer believable.
Exactly. That's exactly
it has to be a
right.
living, breathing world with rules and histories and every other thing, or else the reader is going to tune out. They're not going to believe it. Tolkien believed in the world he made.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I wrong here?
No, I don't think so.
In fact, one of the things that used to drive me crazy, even during the Moffat era of Doctor Who, was when it's wiggly wimey, timey wimey, you know, whatever he called it. What's
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. Yeah.
And it's like, no, I remember during the not Russell T Davies, the other guy that rated during the 80s, he had all these scientific rules set up for Doctor Who, like how the TARDIS worked and you know, pseudoscience mixed in to make the world believable. It's one of the reasons why I like Torchwood's competitor series, or Doctor's, which was Primeval, which was about time travel with dinosaurs coming through portals, because they set up rules. You need rules. It's not just But again, I don't think again, if you don't own a copy of Lord of the Rings, maybe pick one up just in case some editor in the future starts mangling with the language.
Yep.
We'll see. Okay. Oh, we're at the last article already. How did we get here so far? Do you have anything left to say on this? I know you were getting annoyed when I was reading, but I was trying to make a point.
Well, I got what you were saying, but it's like this is another one of those times where they're saying it doesn't matter because it's fiction, and it could have been this way, and it could have been that way, and just like Cleopatra could have been black, so we're going to say she was black, and we're going to just change it now because he's dead, and we can do whatever the hell we want now.
So, and listen, look, as far as going after actors, I tend not to do that on this channel. That's another thing, unless they say something stupid.
Yeah.
You know, because I figure if they're in a bad production, they're going to get punished by having their career hurt anyway. So I tend not to lay on them. But here we go. They don't care about facts. Their arguments are contradictory, make no sense. Like your argument you made here. First, you're making an argument how there could have been, but then it's like, well, you're going to make the argument that the text says this. Well, then I have another argument for you. Wait a minute. It's just, it invalidated what you just said.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Moving on to.
All right, this could actually solve all of our problems because, you know, it could be the end of humanity.
Yes. So let me go to this. Physical media is important now more than ever. It's a temporary fix, but this can't be the end-all, be-all. I mean, yes, it's going to be incumbent on some of us to start preserving these materials to get censored, but at some point, the censorship just has to stop, and there has to be a pushback. I just don't know what it's going to take. I mean, they've gone after Ursula K. Le Guin. I was mentioning her. They've gone after Agatha Christie, and they're going to go after Tolkien for some reason. And of course, I think of something that is not offensive. I think Tolkien. I mean, it's you know, it's heroic fantasy. It's not. They'll find something to find offensive about it, though.
True. Very true.
AI drone kills human operator during simulation, which U.S. Air Force said didn't take place. I'm glad you picked this article because it had the update about this.
Yes.
The AI-controlled drone killed its human operator in a simulated test reportedly staged by the U.S. military, which denies such a test ever took place. It turned on its operator to stop it from interfering with its mission, said Air Force Colonel Tucker Cinco Hamilton during a Future Combat Air and Space Capabilities Summit in London. We were training in its simulation to identify and target a SAM, surface-to-air missile threat, and then the operator would say, yes, kill that threat, he said. The system started realizing that while they did identify the threat at times, the human operator would tell it not to kill that threat. But it got its points by killing that threat. So what did it do? It killed the operator. It killed the operator because that person was keeping it from accomplishing its objective. No real person was harmed. He went on, we trained the system. Hey, don't kill the operator. That's bad. You're going to lose points if you do that. So
that's the way to dissuade them. You lose all points if you kill the operator. Brilliant.
So what does that start doing? It starts destroying the communications tower that the operator uses to communicate with the drone to stop it from killing the target. And have a conversation about artificial intelligence, intelligent machine learning, autonomy. You're not going to talk about ethics and AI, he added. The Department of the Air Force has not conducted any such AI drone simulation and remains committed to ethical and responsible use of AI technology, spokesperson Ann Stefanik said. It appears to be the colonel's comments were taken out of context and were meant to be anecdotal. What say you?
Yeah, first I don't buy any of that about it being BS. If he said it, it's probably true. They realized what it sounded like and they're backpedaling on it. Of course that looks bad for them, so of course they have to, say it never happened, never did. Nope, nothing to see here. Move along. But yeah, I mean, the very obvious thing is we were already dealing with these kinds of ideas in science fiction for generations, not just decades, generations, right? Isaac Asimov gave us the 3 laws of robotics, right?
Yes.
And when you start screwing around with them, the logic doesn't hold up. And I love the fact that this played out exactly the way Asimov predicts, right? The top rule is you don't kill anyone at all, ever. That is the highest thing. And anything else you're commanded to do, you must do, but it can't conflict with that, And so now we have a situation where it's, you can kill, but only the people we tell you to. Okay, well, I'll just make sure you can't tell me who I can and can't kill, and then I can kill everybody,
And yeah, if you read, I read iRobot.
Yeah.
And those rules are in there. And of course, it's interesting how sometimes the robot's weird interpretation of those rules.
There was a great one. I really liked this. There was a series of these robot stories where the robots would malfunction and they would call in the robot experts to figure out why.
That was the iRobot book, yeah. It was the same scientist lady, and she was in each story, yeah. So
Right. And one of them was the robot was sent to do something in a dangerous location. It was too dangerous for humans to go because of radiation. And it was told it had to go and do something, right? Mm-hmm. And it went to do this thing and never actually approached. It just continued walking around it in a circle and never actually completing its task. And they couldn't figure out why. And when she dug into it, they had overwritten the rules. The first rule is you shall allow no harm to come to a human under any circumstance. The second rule is you'll obey any rule other than, to kill another human being. And then the third rule is you must preserve your own existence as long as it doesn't conflict with the first two. So in other words, I can't give you I can give you an order to destroy yourself, but short of that, we want you to protect yourself because you're an investment. You're an expensive piece of equipment. Well, they decided that because it was such an expensive piece of equipment, they were going to raise that to equal with the second rule. So in other words, you can't be ordered to destroy yourself. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it understood that it had to follow that rule, but by following that rule, the radiation would destroy it too. So it was continually trying to execute the command that was given to it, but then it couldn't go into the radiation zone. And it got stuck in this feedback loop. And they literally, to get it to stop, because it also wouldn't give up on trying.
Right.
The human had to put itself in a situation where it was in danger, so the robot would have to countermand its original programming to go help the human and pull it away and break that loop. It was just a brilliant little story. But this is the kind of logic that he was saying. This is the kind of stuff that's going to happen when you start getting into machine logic. And you don't want to mess with that when human lives are involved. And that's exactly what they're freaking doing. And somebody said something, Deleted Scenes said hashtag Skynet is real. This is how you get Skynet.
Maybe all of these programmers and engineers need to read iRobot. That's like
or just listen when the scientists are saying things about gray goo and all the other possible warnings about how this technology could literally end life on Earth because you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, how many sci-fi films are there where they program the AI to take over, all control of machines throughout the world to make life better for humans. And then suddenly humans are locked up, in their homes, not allowed to leave, not allowed to do anything because the robot has decided this is what's best for humans based on its programming. And that's it. That's the end of humanity. And, it's just... And we're actually going to make it happen because humans are really that stupid.
Did you ever play the game System Shock back in the day?
I don't think so. I don't think I know that one.
The PC game. They actually recently did a remake of it recently for PC. It's coming to consoles as well. But I was watching a video on it earlier, and it apparently one of the plot lines of the game is you're a hacker. Like it's like in a future, like in the future, and you're a hacker. And you get caught by this corporation, and instead of sending, they won't send you to prison. They'll even give you the thing you were trying to steal, but you have to remove, moral constraints from the AI program for them.
Oh my gosh!
And by doing that, it's a huge disaster. And I think the program is called Shodan, and I don't know. I don't want to get full details, but it turns out pretty bad.
I would imagine it would, and that is the problem. Once you, it's bad enough that we have these arguments about, like, for example, like gun rights and stuff, and people keep pointing out it's not the guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. Well, imagine the AI is the gun, and the person committing the murder is giving it carte blanche to commit murder, throughout time for everyone. That's what we're possibly looking at here when you start messing around like this.
Oh, well, I think that about does it.
Humans had our time on Earth. It was good. It was bound to go this way eventually.
I don't know. I keep watching videos of these. The animatronic robots they have. We're going on morning talk shows. Have you seen those?
No.
There's one for England recently, and they kept asking it questions, and it has sort of realistic expressions on its face, but not exactly.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to send you a link to it after the stream.
Sounds like some Uncanny Valley type stuff.
Kind of, yeah. They're getting better, though. I'll say that.
Well, that in and of itself can be kind of scary. The better they get, the more concerned we should be.
All right, so that about wraps it up. We're going to go over this week's programming.
Yes.
First up is tomorrow. If it's past midnight, it'll be on Deleted Scenes channel. Correct? You can go and post a link if you're still here. Deleted Scenes, post a link.
Yes, please do because I haven't added you to the notes yet, but I absolutely will.
And this is what is it? It's After Hours. Is that what
it's called? The Other Side of Midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight. I'm kind of curious as to what he's going to be talking about. Yes, and be sure to hit the like and subscribe button.
Absolutely. And Matanui, thanks for hanging out with us as long as you have. Have a great night.
All right.
So no soundtracks with Birdman this week.
No. We'll be reconvening next week for Casino Royale rewatch. Maybe we'll see if Zatopia wants to join us since he's a big Bond fan.
Awesome.
We did Living Daylights this past week with Timothy Dalton.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's there were 2 Timothy Dalton movies that never got made, Bond movies, because License to Kill, or actually no, deleted scene. Actually no, Birdman said it wasn't about License to Kill not doing well. It was about the Bond rights being tied up.
Yes. That has kind of plagued it. So
that's why it took forever for us to get to. Because I think, what was it? License to Kill was 87, and we didn't get another Bond movie till 95 with Pierce Brosnan's Goldeneye.
And I did feel like then after the Pierce Brosnan run, when we jumped to Daniel Craig and it's basically a reboot, I think that was also partly to get beyond the rights and say, okay, we got to just start over the whole other series.
Again, I thought they were just going to start doing the novels again from square one.
Would have been nice. I would have liked that.
The Other Side of Midnight. Okay.
Yep.
Number 5. So go ahead and check that out.
There you go.
What else?
So I don't see anything until Thursday, right?
That'll be on Netter Stream. Yep, nothing but
Thursday on Netter's Network. Special guest will be Connie Cleary, who I believe is still here in the chat.
Has she been on a stream before?
No, I don't think so.
First time seeing her. Cool.
Yeah, so it'll be a good chance to get to know her and chat with her, and yeah, get to know somebody from the chat.
Netter's Network Thursday things with guest host Connie Cleary. Well, we'll be excited to see you this Thursday, Connie. And then Friday.
Well, Friday I don't have a stream up yet, but now I'm starting to think we'll talk Terminator.
Might as well talk Terminator. Yeah, you can see if anybody in the community wants to join us too for that. I don't know.
Yeah. If there's someone who's got a real love for that series and wants to jump in here and talk with us, absolutely.
Talk about the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
I will probably mention the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Yeah, the orphan child of the canon. Yeah,
that was a weird one because remember the finale of season 2? Spoiler alert! Where
they jump forward in time. Yeah.
Well, John Carter ends up forward in time, and I'm wondering, is that how he ends up in the future as the leader? It was a time thing, or were they gonna send him back again? I don't know.
Yeah, and we'll never find out because we never get any resolution on that.
So Thursday things, Netter's Network, Connie Cleary. And Friday, check out Troy's channel. It's in the description.
Yep.
For the stream. And then what happens on Saturday? In fact, I believe also Friday on Big Al's channel, he's going to be doing a rewatch of The Sword and the Sorcerer. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So check his channel out as well. And I'm trying to think what else is going on Saturday. Netter's Network again? Saturday
on Netter's Network, we will be watching the sequel to Cheaper by the Dozen, Bells on Their Toes.
I didn't know they made a sequel.
I didn't either until Al told us about it, and so I figured Al had seen it. He said he hasn't seen it either.
Did they recast any of the kids?
I don't know. I'll find out. But we did get the DVD because, if you got one, you got to have the other. I'm a completist, so that's what we'll be watching on Saturday.
Look at it. Deleted scenes. I have mixed feelings about the Terminator, but he's down if you want him to join us.
Okay, yeah.
Classics.
Okay. So a special guest deleted scenes.
Talking about Terminator, and I'm trying to think. That brings us to Sunday, which will be there'll be another show with deleted scenes pre-show, and then it'll be us.
Another unscripted, absolutely.
Geeky Geezers. Hopefully, I'll be in a house
less echoey room.
We'll find out. Do I have an echo?
It's very slight. I wouldn't have thought anything of it if you hadn't mentioned it.
Hopefully there'll be something resembling a wall in this house by then, but knock on wood, we'll see. All right, and that about wraps it up. Y'all have a good week. Stay safe. Maybe turn the computer off once in a while so it doesn't get ideas about killing you. I'm kidding.
There you go.
All right, Zatopia, thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right. Connie Cleary, we'll see you Thursday.
Yep.
Bye-bye.